Chosen one, what I'm about to reveal to you will finally answer the question that has been burning in your heart for years: why you've always felt different, why you've never quite fit into the molds that others seem comfortable in, and why you've carried a sense of divine purpose that you couldn't fully understand or explain to anyone else. Today, God is pulling back the veil on your true identity and the specific reason He marked you from before you were born for something far greater than you've dared to imagine. You've lived most of your life feeling like you were walking around with a secret that even you didn't fully understand, while others seemed content with ordinary goals and conventional success. Something deep within your spirit has always known that you were created for more. You've felt the weight of destiny on your shoulders, but you've also felt the confusion of not knowing exactly what that destiny entailed or when it would be revealed. That divine restlessness you've experienced, that holy dissatisfaction with mediocrity, that unexplainable pull toward something greater, all of that has been God's way of keeping your heart open and expectant for this moment of revelation. The reason you've felt set apart is because you literally have been set apart. Before you were formed in your mother's womb, before your parents even met, before your grandparents were born, God looked down the corridors of time and chose you specifically for an assignment that would require someone with your exact combination of gifts, experiences, temperament, and spiritual capacity. You weren't chosen because you were perfect. You were chosen because God knew exactly how to use your strengths and even your weaknesses to accomplish something that no one else could accomplish in quite the same way. In Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, God told the prophet, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." This wasn't just true for Jeremiah. This is the pattern God uses for all His chosen vessels. He doesn't choose people after they prove themselves worthy. He chooses them before they're born and then spends their lifetime preparing them for their ultimate assignment. Your childhood experiences, even the difficult ones, were part of your preparation. The challenges you faced that seemed to break you were actually building resilience and compassion that you'll need for what's coming. The talents you discovered, the interests that captured your attention, the subjects that fascinated you in school, the causes that stirred your heart, all of these were divine deposits placed in your spirit to equip you for your calling. Even your struggles with sin, your seasons of rebellion, your moments of feeling far from God, these too were part of your preparation, because they gave you empathy for others who would struggle in similar ways, and they taught you about the depth of God's grace and forgiveness that you'll need to extend to others in your ministry. The reason God is revealing your set-apart nature now is because you're approaching the season when your preparation ends and your assignment begins. All the pieces of your life that seemed random or disconnected are about to come together in a way that will make perfect sense. And you'll see how every experience, every relationship, every triumph, and every failure has been preparing you for this moment when your true purpose is unveiled. But understanding why you were set apart requires more than just knowing you have a calling. It requires understanding the specific nature of that calling and how it fits into God's master plan for this generation and the generations to come. There are unmistakable characteristics that mark someone who has been set apart for divine purposes, and recognizing these traits in yourself will confirm that what you're sensing about your destiny is not wishful thinking but prophetic recognition of God's design for your life. The first characteristic is what I call divine dissatisfaction. You've never been able to settle for anything that doesn't align with deeper purpose, even when settling would have been easier or more profitable. While others around you seemed content with jobs that only paid bills, relationships that were merely convenient, or achievements that brought temporary satisfaction, you've always felt an internal pressure to pursue something more meaningful, more impactful, more aligned with eternal values. This divine dissatisfaction isn't restlessness or inability to commit. It's God's way of keeping you available for His higher purposes by making lesser purposes feel empty and unfulfilling. The second characteristic is spiritual sensitivity beyond your environment. You've always been able to sense spiritual realities that others around you couldn't perceive. You could feel the atmosphere change when you walked into certain places. You could sense people's spiritual condition even when they presented themselves differently. And you've had experiences with God's presence, dreams, or spiritual insights that seemed unusual compared to what others in your family or social circle experienced. The third characteristic is uncommon resilience through trials. When you look back over your life, you'll realize that you've survived and overcome challenges that broke other people. not because you were stronger naturally, but because God preserved you supernaturally. You've walked through valleys that should have destroyed you, but instead they refined you. You've faced opposition that should have defeated you, but instead it developed your character and increased your dependence on God. The fourth characteristic is magnetic attraction to broken people. Throughout your life, hurting people have been drawn to you for reasons they often couldn't explain. They've shared their deepest struggles with you, sought your advice, and found comfort in your presence. This isn't because you advertised yourself as a counselor or healer, but because the anointing for restoration that God placed on your life is recognizable to wounded spirits, even when it's not yet fully activated. The fifth characteristic is prophetic glimpses of your future impact. You've had moments, maybe in dreams, during prayer, or just random flashes of insight, where you've seen yourself speaking to large groups, writing something that impacts many people, leading a ministry, starting an organization, or influencing change in some significant way. These weren't fantasies or ego-driven ambitions. They were prophetic previews of what God has planned for you. My dear chosen vessel, I need to pause here because I can sense that many of you are experiencing deep recognition as you hear these characteristics described, and some of you are feeling emotional as you realize that what you've always sensed about yourself is being confirmed through this message. If your spirit is bearing witness that this word is specifically for you, I want to invite you to take a step of faith by joining our community of chosen ones who are learning to walk in their divine assignments. Subscribe to this channel not just to receive more content, but to connect with others who understand the unique journey of being set apart for God's purposes. When you subscribe, you're declaring that you're ready to stop hiding your calling and start stepping into it boldly. And in the comments, write "I am set apart" so I can pray specifically for the full revelation of your purpose, and so others in our community can encourage you as you step into what God has prepared for you. The sixth characteristic is unusual favor in unexpected places. Throughout your life, you've experienced favor that you couldn't explain. Doors opening when you didn't have the qualifications. People helping you for reasons they couldn't articulate. Opportunities appearing at exactly the right time. Resources becoming available just when you needed them. This supernatural favor is evidence that heaven has been orchestrating circumstances to position you for your calling. The specific reason you were set apart becomes clear when you understand that God is preparing to address critical needs in this generation that can only be met by people who have been uniquely prepared through specific experiences and equipped with particular combinations of gifts. You weren't set apart for generic ministry or random good works. You were set apart to solve specific problems, reach specific people, and accomplish specific tasks that are crucial to God's plan for this time in history. One category of chosen ones has been set apart as bridge builders, people who can connect groups that have been divided, translate between different cultures or generations, and bring unity where there has been separation. If you've always found yourself comfortable in multiple different environments, if people from various backgrounds seem to trust you naturally, and if you have an unusual ability to see common ground where others see only differences, you may be called to be a bridge builder in the body of Christ or in society at large. Another category has been set apart as truth revealers, people who have been given unusual discernment to see, through deception, expose false teachings, and bring clarity where there has been confusion. If you've always been able to detect when something wasn't quite right, even when others couldn't see it, if you have a gift for research and investigation that uncovers hidden things, and if you feel a burning in your spirit when you encounter false information being presented as truth, you may be called to be a truth revealer in these times of widespread deception. A third category has been set apart as wounded healers, people who have been through specific types of trauma, addiction, loss, or struggle so that they can minister healing to others walking through similar experiences. If your greatest pain has become your greatest passion for helping others, if people who have experienced what you've experienced seem to find you naturally, and if your testimony of overcoming has more power than conventional counseling methods, you may be called to be a wounded healer for this generation. A fourth category has been set apart as creative reformers, people who have been given innovative ideas, artistic abilities, or entrepreneurial insights that can transform systems, create new solutions to old problems, or present eternal truths in fresh ways that capture the attention of people who have become immune to traditional approaches. If you've always seen possibilities that others missed, if you have creative abilities that seem almost supernatural, And if you're constantly coming up with ideas for how things could be done better, you may be called to be a creative reformer. A fifth category has been set apart as prophetic voices. People who have been given supernatural insight into God's heart for specific situations, regions, or people groups, and who can speak His words with authority and accuracy. If you've had dreams or visions that came to pass, if you found yourself speaking words that brought breakthrough to others, and if you have an unusual burden for intercession and spiritual warfare, you may be called to be a prophetic voice for this generation. The reason God is revealing these categories now is because each type of chosen vessel is needed urgently for what is about to do in the earth. The challenges facing this generation are so complex that they require people who have been specifically prepared for specific types of ministry and influence. You weren't set apart to do everything, you were set apart to do something specific that God has been preparing you for your entire life. Understanding your specific category of calling will help you stop trying to fit into ministry models that weren't designed for your type of anointing, and it will give you confidence to pursue the unique path that God has ordained for you. Even if it doesn't look like what others are doing or what you thought ministry was supposed to look like. Now that you're beginning to understand the general category of your calling, it's crucial to learn how to receive the specific details of your assignment, because God doesn't just call people to broad categories of ministry, He calls them to specific tasks, specific people groups, specific geographical areas, and specific time frames. The difference between knowing you're called and knowing exactly what you're called to do is the difference between general purpose and precise mission. The first step in receiving specific assignment details is what I call sacred solitude with expectation. You need to set aside extended time alone with God, not just for general prayer and worship, but with the specific intention of receiving clear instructions about your calling. This isn't a one-time prayer session, but a consistent practice of waiting in God's presence until He reveals the next level of detail about what He's prepared for you to do. During these times of sacred solitude, you should come with specific questions. What problem am I being sent to solve? What people group am I being sent to reach? What geographical area am I being called to focus on? What timeline is God working within for my assignment? What resources will I need, and how will they be provided? What other people will I need to partner with? What obstacles should I expect, and how should I prepare for them? The second step is confirmation through multiple witnesses. God rarely gives life-changing instructions through only one source. When He's ready to reveal your specific assignment, He'll confirm it through His written word, through the witness of mature believers who know you well, through circumstances that align with what you're sensing, and through supernatural peace that confirms you're hearing correctly. Don't move forward on major life decisions based solely on feelings or single prophetic words. Wait for the multiple confirmations that give you unshakable confidence that you've heard from God accurately. The bigger the assignment, the more confirmation God will provide, because He knows the cost of obedience will require absolute certainty about His instructions. The third step is preparation through practical steps. Once you've received clear direction about your calling, God will begin to show you practical steps you need to take to prepare for what's coming. This might involve getting additional training, developing certain skills, building specific relationships, moving to a different location, changing your financial habits, or adjusting your lifestyle to accommodate your calling. Don't despise the preparation season, or try to rush into the fullness of your calling before you're ready. The preparation is just as much part of God's plan as the assignment itself, and how you handle the preparation determines how successful you'll be when the full assignment is revealed. Dear chosen vessel, we've reached a pivotal point in this revelation, and I want you to know that what you're learning here isn't just inspirational content, it's activation truth that can literally change the trajectory of your entire life when you apply it correctly. If you're ready to move from wondering about your calling to walking in it boldly, I invite you to make a commitment that demonstrates your seriousness about this journey. Subscribe to this channel and engage actively with our community of chosen ones who are supporting each other through the process of discovering and fulfilling their divine assignments. This isn't just about watching videos, it's about being part of a network of people who understand the unique challenges and extraordinary privileges of being set apart for God's purposes. In the comments, share what category of calling resonated most strongly with you and ask for prayer as you seek specific details about your assignment. Your vulnerability will encourage others and create an atmosphere where God can move powerfully in all our lives. The fourth step is gradual activation through faithful stewardship. God doesn't typically reveal the full scope of someone's calling all at once because it would be overwhelming, and because He wants to test their faithfulness in smaller responsibilities before entrusting them with larger ones. Expect your calling to unfold gradually as you prove faithful with each level of responsibility you're given. Living as someone who has been set apart for divine purposes comes with both extraordinary privileges and significant responsibilities that will fundamentally change how you approach relationships, decisions, career choices, and daily life. Once you fully embrace your identity as a chosen vessel, you can never again settle for mediocrity or make choices based solely on personal preference without considering how they align with or advance your divine assignment. The first major shift you'll experience is in your relationship with God Himself. Instead of approaching Him primarily as someone who can solve your problems or meet your needs, you'll begin to approach Him as someone who has work for you to do and wisdom to give you for accomplishing that work. Your prayers will become less focused on getting things from God and more focused on getting instructions, strategies, and empowerment for fulfilling your calling. This doesn't mean your personal needs become unimportant, but it means they become secondary to the larger purposes God has for your life. You'll discover that when you seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, all the things you were worried about providing for yourself get added to your life as byproducts of walking in your calling. The second major shift is in how you handle opposition and criticism. When you're living for general Christian principles, opposition feels personal and devastating. But when you're living for a specific divine assignment, opposition becomes confirmation that you're threatening the enemy's plans and that what you're doing matters in the spiritual realm. You'll develop what I call assignment immunity, the ability to stay focused on what God has called you to do, regardless of who misunderstands you, criticizes your methods, or questions your motives. This isn't arrogance or insensitivity. It's the mature confidence that comes from knowing you're accountable to God rather than to human opinion. The third major shift is in your approach to resources and opportunities. Instead of grabbing every opportunity that comes your way or pursuing every stream of income available to you, you'll begin to evaluate everything through the lens of whether it advances your calling or distracts from it. You'll turn down good opportunities that aren't God opportunities, and you'll invest your time, energy, and money in ways that build toward your assignment rather than just building your personal comfort. The fourth major shift is in your relationships. Some relationships that seemed important when you were living for general purposes will become less central as you focus on your calling, while new relationships will form around your assignment that are deeper and more meaningful than any you've experienced before. You'll stop trying to maintain relationships with people who drain your calling and start gravitating toward people who fuel it. This isn't about becoming selfish or abandoning people who need help, but it's about being strategic with your limited time and energy so that you can accomplish what God has specifically assigned to you, rather than getting scattered across everyone else's priorities. The fifth major shift is in your legacy consciousness. Instead of thinking primarily about your immediate family or your lifetime, you'll begin to think about the generational impact of your obedience to your calling. You'll make decisions based on how they'll affect not just your children, but your children's children, and not just your lifetime, but the advancement of God's kingdom for decades to come. The most profound shift you'll experience is what I call eternal perspective in daily decisions. Every choice, from where you live to what you eat for breakfast, will be influenced by an awareness that you're a steward of a divine assignment and that your life doesn't belong entirely to you anymore. This might sound restrictive, but it's actually the most liberating way to live because it gives meaning and purpose to even the smallest aspects of your daily routine. You'll wake up each morning knowing that you have important work to do that matters for eternity, and you'll go to sleep each night with the satisfaction of knowing that your life is contributing to something far greater than your personal happiness or success.